Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Well, after 5 weeks, it all comes down to this. The final decider for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. We've got 30 or so drivers, and it's all getting whittled down to 15 at the end of today. Myself, Paul Smith, and Arjuna Kankapati bringing you all of the action. And Arjuna, this is it. This is the last chance for drivers.
Last chance saloon, and for some drivers, I think already they know their chances are either settled or completely out the window, right? It's those drivers in the middle, the ones that are right on the cusp, on that cut line. They'll be thinking about a lot, thinking about nailing qualifying, and it's a long track. We know the drama that Spa can bring, and for the first time, Paul, we get to see this new version on iRacing in the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
Yeah, absolutely tremendous to see it, and a little bit inclemental weather is going to be adding to the spice of today. Well, here's the format of how we have got here. It started off with the qualifying series, the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup qualifying series. That was earlier this summer. The top 15 from that championship then came into the Contender series, and the bottom 15 from the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup came on to compete against them. The top 15 of this series will then find themselves invited to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup 2025. There are a few drivers who gained entry through one of 5 Porsche market slots as well. Great to see all these drivers competing and join us from it, and it gets them used to this format, doesn't it, Arjuna?
It's a lot of fun, isn't it? You go out, you qualify, you get 10 points if you're fastest of them all. It gives you the chance to lead from the front of the sprint race. The only problem is the winner of the sprint race gets inverted back to 8th to start the feature. And so one thing that we have kind of talked about and noted over the course of the season is it pays more points to finish 8th in the sprint and win the feature than to qualify on pole, win the sprint, and finish 8th in that main race itself. So you've got to understand this format. You've got to know when to fight because, Paul, the margin in qualifying is so small, let's not forget, right? A 1/10 of a second could see you drop 20 positions. And so if you find yourself at the front, understanding what you're fighting for really comes into play.
Certainly does, as we'll have a look then at how things stand. There's a bit of pride up for offer here at the top of the standings because Josh Rogers has got a lead against his teammates of Tristan Iglesias, Mitchell de Jong and Michael Jani. William Chadwick, the lone soldier out there in the top 5, not from Coanda. But it's this right here, the top 15. They're the ones who automatically get given an invite to next year's Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. It's Pashto and Pai that are trying to somehow sneak themselves in.
And in some ways, you know, Beckham Jasir missed the first round. He's had a pretty good season after that, showing us his speed. We're not expecting him to falter, so the impetus is on Pastor and Pai to try and work their way forward. Something they'll be hoping, though, is that it's very possible that some of the drivers that are locked in from this year's Super Cup elect not to return for 2025, and therefore a couple of additional drivers are invited as well. Let's say it's just one additional driver, though, Paul. let's say Daniel Pastor and Oscar Pai are split by 1 point. That 1 point could be very, very important.
Every point matters here in the Contender series, and yeah, absolutely. It's going to be intriguing to see how that goes on here today. And here is one of those drivers right on the bubble, Beckham Josiah. Then he's been impressive. He's shown that speed here in the season. He's also having a good chew on a straw there as well.
You know what he's forgot to do? He's done it all season as well. He's forgot to make his bed for the final time. Beckham, I'm not very impressed.
Yeah, you got to make up your bed if it's going to be on TV. That is for sure. But here's something that the drivers have to contend with for the first time since Okayama, and that's damp weather conditions. The track officially is lightly wet, but there's no rain in the sky, so this track will be drying up. I think that qualifying, you're going to see a lot of drivers wait as late as possible before going out on track.
Oh, absolutely. But the problem is you're playing a game of chicken, right? The longer you wait, yes, the track gets more dry, but you're also starting to run up against that clock, right? And risking that a small mistake, even if it's only half a second or so, sees you A, either not set a time, or B, drop all the way back. So there's that risk-reward element to play with. But this is where the wet weather conditions really are at their most fun. At the end of the day, when it's raining at a constant rate, and nothing much is changing, it goes back to, basically, for these drivers, running in the dry, muscle memory. But when things are changing lap after lap, when you head up to Eau Rouge and Radion for the second time, for example, and now you've got to try and figure out, right, has the line changed? Is there a dry line now starting to build? That's where the best drivers really earn and show why they're so good. Going to be very fun. Like you said, qualifying going to be important.
Yeah, absolutely going to be important for them. Florian Lebigre, one race win this season, which was a sprint race at Laguna Seca. He'll be hoping to get himself a good finish to the season here, and he's been preparing himself, although he's just going to pull over here right now. But yeah, Florian, with once again, we get forehead cam. Nice view of the fridge that's provided to him by his team. Get a bit of artwork, I would say. I'd want a bit of artwork on the wall. He's got a little bit of artwork in that top left, but get a bit more in frame as well.
Let's drop the timing tower. Has he made his bed?
Oh, yes.
Let's wait. He has. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Congratulations, Florian. We like to see that. Also notice, there's only 1, maybe 2 cans of a certain energy drink in that fridge. So he's clearly ready to go because he's been emptying the fridge at a rate of knots. He's a driver as well that, you know, he's got no teammates to help him in this Contender series, and we've talked about it on a number of occasions. And so that's where I think we've seen the up and down in his form, right? Some weeks he's hot and he's got it all figured out. Some weeks he doesn't have it all figured out, and that's maybe just because, like, his Team Redline teammates are off focusing on other series, whereas Coanda with the 12, remember, 12 drivers that they had entering this series, it was full focus on this 7 weeks for them.
Yeah, it certainly was. One thing I will say, though, is if Florian does cement himself into that top 15, which we expect him to do, he joins a whole raft of Team Redline drivers in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. None more so than defending champion as well, Sebastian Job. So, yeah, he's been doing it on his own here, but what a way to then come into that group and to be working together for next season.
Sebastian Job's an Oracle Red Bull Red Bull sim racing driver, Paul. Don't get me in trouble.
Don't get me in trouble with Redline.
Yeah, don't get me in trouble. Anyway, you can see the weather conditions there, and quite abnormally for iRacing, you tend to see, for the most part, air temperature is the minimum that you'll see on the track itself. But because of the dampness, the moisture that we've got, we're here in the Ardennes, it's not abnormal. We've got that track temperature down to 17 degrees Celsius. And what does that mean? Well, if you're new to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, well, we've got some games to be played on these warm-up laps as drivers try and build up temperature into their tires in the most efficient way possible. They'll be maybe weaving a little bit back and forth. They're also trying not to wear and scrub the tire too much. So there's a little bit of a dance that's going on. And I think, Paul, that's why they've all gone out right now. We speculated they'll maybe wait to the end of the session, but they're trying to figure out how to warm up their tires. And it's better to try and do that right now rather than with just one attempt at the very end of the qualifying clock.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got it spot on there. And by the way, those conditions for the end of October in the Ardennes Forest is quite frankly tropical. It's it's so hot, is this? So yeah, these drivers, they won't know what's hit them, and it's got very dark, so clouds come over, but there is no rain on the radar for us here in this event, so it should be drying out all the way through. One or two drivers are carrying on their preparation lap. So car 16, which is Tristan Iglesias, he's the first one out there along with Elliot Veyron that's still carrying on their warm-up laps through campus and then through to Stavolo. This track, even though I know every corner of this track, I still have to bring up a track map just because they keep on changing all the corner names here.
Corner names are a suggestion at Spa. Make them up as you go. And we're watching them go to the end of the lap. Remember, you can reset to pit lane at any time before you break the timing line to start your actual hot lap. So you can run all the way up to the bus stop chicane, or the chicane as I guess I should call it now. It's no longer a bus stop. But you can't cross the line, and so I think we are going to see a couple of drivers push the limit and just try and figure it out. Am I crazy, Paul? Am I seeing a dry line start to emerge here and there? And as we see Daniel Savini become the latest driver to pull to the side of the track, the more that they go out there and run, even though they're not sharing the track itself together, they can't see one another, they'll all be drying it out a little bit as well.
Well, I can tell you that the first driver to actually start a lap is Rafael Silva. He's the one who's going to start the lap here on this one. So it's a question of, is he going to be the benchmark that others then just fly past? Or is it a case of he's just out there just getting his time in and not worrying about things?
Well, a benchmark implies that it's something I think that everyone's going to try and beat. Is he going to be able to get over the top of Eau Rouge without getting a slowdown? That was 4 wheels inside of the white line, but he might just have gotten away with that one. I think this is an interesting play. Interesting is the only way I can describe it, because 40 seconds into the lap, only one other driver has now crossed the line, and that's Roger Christensen, who's just begun their timed attempt. And you can see up here, it's really difficult. Lecombe, where the track is sometimes a little bit bumpy, he washes out wide, and this is a corner to watch in the race. You're side by side through here. One driver is ending up in the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, for those wondering, the track limits here are defined by the back edge of curbing. So you can go all 4 wheels over the white line, which quite frankly makes me twitch a little here. But where there is no curbing, it's the white line at that point. So up through Eau Rouge Radion, you are going to be seeing drivers cutting all the way across the inside of that left at Radion. Over the top of the mountain. Well, I call it a mountain. It feels like it when you walk up it.
Onto the brakes here. It's sometimes difficult as well from these onboard cameras to try and figure out exactly where the car is placed when it comes to those track limits. So these drivers have got to be so careful, so precise. This has been relatively tidy with the exception of maybe Lecombe, has not really overdriven, which is somewhat what you want to see in these damp conditions. Oh, that car was understeering though, and over the curb, very slippery, and you could see it unsettle as well as it loaded and unloaded over the bumps. Curbs aren't flat, they are very, very much things that you want to try and avoid in these damp conditions. Blanchimont is so fast and committed in the dry, and I think that is just within the bounds of the track limit, although cost him probably at least a couple of tenths of a second.
You could hear it halfway through the corner suddenly, and you could see it on his face of, no, this isn't working. Right, here's a lap time then that's going to come on the board. This is what we're going to look. He doesn't look too impressed as Rafael, but it's a 2:36.2 for Rafael Silva. Next driver Roger Christensen then, who's going to be setting a lap time as, well, I've got crashing and banging in the background of my, I've got fireworks going on outside of this room. There's going to be fireworks later in this race.
I think Roger Christensen is going to be looking to try and break into the 31. Now in practice, we did see some low 32s, and that was still with the track drying out, let's not forget as well. So maybe the pressure building up for some of these drivers. For Roger Christensen, that is suboptimal, 37.1. Let's see if we're going to see anyone else trying to improve. Leo Gariboli. Everyone is now on their hot laps. They don't have a choice. They've got to be on their lap, otherwise time will run out by the time they hit the line. Gariboli, the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain amateur champion from a couple of years ago, looking to try and step up into the Super Cup. Bounces over the curves, out wide. Not sure if this is the quickest of lap times. Let's see if he can beat the 78s.
And it's 36.9. So Rafael Silva, he wasn't happy with his lap, but still there at the top. Luis Belique then across the line to set a 2:36.9 as well. As more and more times come across the board here, Arjuna. As I say that, Dave Warren with a 32.
7/10 though, I think it then shows that Rafael Silva did enough right on that lap. Even though it was maybe a bit damper for him, he just controlled the car, and now Coanda 1 through 4 as it sits right now, make that 1 through 5. Beckham Jasir in 6th position, the first non-Coanda driver on the board, still though with plenty yet to come.
Julian Sonnen up into 2nd, Elliot Veijer on 3rd. There's more and more times coming here. Pai up there, and Josh Rogers to the top of the standings here in qualifying 32.1. Here's Florian Lebigra. What can he do in his Team Redline car? Clatters over that curb on the right-hand side, and then onto the power. Looking to get a time in here. Mitchell de Jong second in the meantime, a 33.5.
For a second there, Coanda had locked out the top 10 in qualifying until Will Chadwick had jumped himself up into 9th position. Remarkable. They've clearly figured out a little bit in those changeable conditions. Remember, Okayama, they weren't all comfortable. My word, that was fun. Now we get to go racing for the first time tonight.
Yeah, so let's take a look at your starting grid. 27 drivers will be taking the start, and it's Josh Rogers, Mitchell de Jong, the two teammates, front row of the grid. They're then joined by 2 more teammates, Dane Warren and Julian Sonnen, and then 2 more teammates, Elliot Veyron and Bryn Collins. Another 2 teammates of theirs, of Xander Reed and Michael Jarnett, round out the top 4 rows, all for Coanda Esports. William Chadwick breaks that stranglehold, gets himself into 9th. Alongside him on the 5th row is Oscar Pai. Tristan Iglesias and Florian Lebigra then on row number 6. 7th row of the grid for Morena Sarika, wanting a good week to finish off the season. Elvis Rankin alongside him, with Daniel Pashto and Nicholas Mateo on row number 8. Remember Nicholas at Okayama in the torrential weather. Keep an eye out for him. Beckham Jasir and Carlos Fenalosa then on row number 9. 10th row of the grid for Daniel Savini and Bobby Zelensky. Good to see Bobby actually seeing out the season here when everything's been so bad for him. A few other drivers as well. It's good to see them finish the season as well. Pascal Costa and Simone Maria Marcheno round out row number 11, with row 12 of Rafael Silva and Luis Belique. And then Leo Gariboli, Roger Christensen are the last 2 to set a lap time. Chunye Zhang from Active Point rounds out your 27 cars on the grid. We've got about 20 seconds left here, Arjuna. Thoughts going into La Source? Is it going to be carnage, chaos?
Probably not, especially when you've got so many teammates up front. The question will be for those behind, right? Sarika's going to want to make an impression. I think Beckham Jasir as well. There are some drivers on that cut line that are going to be trying to push the tempo as we get ready to go for 5 laps in the sprint race.
Yeah. Absolutely. 5 laps. It's not a long race round here, but it's a long lap. 7 kilometers per lap. The engine revs rise for the sprint race in the finale of the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. Green flag, we are underway, and it's a good launch from second place for Mitchell de Jong. Pulls up alongside his teammate of Josh Rogers into La Source for the first time. Josh, though, sneaking out into the lead right now as that Coanda wall at the front of the field. But then as we drop downhill, Will Chadwick's 9th, Oscar Pye 10th. They're still in the positions where they started. Through Eau Rouge into Radion, taking it easy with cold tyres and brakes. And already there's some fanning out further back, and there's a spin of that Savini.
There was a bit of a stack up between a couple of Coanda teammates, and I thought it was going to unsettle the pack behind. Could have been a lot worse. We're continuing to climb to the top of the camel. Important because it means the braking zone will be relatively free of puddled up water. So single file for the most part at the front of the field. Slip up there from Xander Reed. His teammate Oscar Pye takes advantage as they single themselves out through Malmedy.
Yeah, William Chadwick making it up into 8th, so he's gained a place, and that is the inverted grid position. Don't forget, there's Matteo, Nicholas Matteo, moving up through the field from where he started. So I said, watch out for Nicholas in this one. He's up there into 14th right now after starting 16th.
It's a track as well, right, where, like you said, it's a long lap. And therefore, each of the laps, you actually get a decent number of passing opportunities. How you want to set them up, though, is going to be important. Nicholas Matteo, we look off the roof of him. He's also got what is not an inconsiderable amount of spray being fed at him, and so that windshield wiper working hard into the middle sector of the lap. And just look how congested it is in front as drivers look for some slightly alternate lines. But it's chock-a-block here in the middle of the pack and getting ready to stretch their legs and climb their way back up towards Blanchimont. We saw how difficult it could be in qualifying. Now imagine when you've got 27 cars running in a line.
Marina Sarica on board with here. Got Florian Lebigra behind, Elvis Rankin behind him, and Lebigra got a good run out of Stavelo through Curvepole Freya and heading towards Blanchimont for the first time. Tyres should have a little bit of temperature in them by now. And onto the brakes, because you have to brake in these conditions, using the track limits and then some for Elvis Rankin as Lebigra looking to the outside into the chicane. It could be a champion move right there, but contact. Oh my goodness, little touch between him and Xander Reed.
It's all instigated because in front, that wall of Coanda actually slightly slipping up through the bus stop and checking up the rest of the fields. Up to La Source, wheel to wheel they will go. Now they're going to try and cycle this through Elvis Rankin on the outside. We have to get on the power slightly earlier, and one thing you do not want to do, side by side down at the bottom of Eau Rouge in these damp conditions. No driver aids, don't forget, in these Porsche Cup cars. They do come with ABS and traction control, but turned off for the Super Cup, both in the real and virtual worlds. Look at the point equation. No change really inside of the cut line, but Oscar Pye taking a bit of a leap on Daniel Pastor. It's what we were talking about pre-race, Paul. In case there are any drivers that elect not to join the Super Cup ranks for 2025, you want to make sure you're the next name to be called.
Oh, side by side for Bobby Zelensky then. Further down the order, Simone Minier Marcello has taken to the pit road. So he's had drama on this opening lap as well. So here's Oscar Pye trying to work his way forward, and what would be ideal for Oscar right now is if he can get ahead of William Chadwick, get himself into that inverted grid position, and then be pushing forward. Speaking of pushing, that was the car 16 off. That's Tristan Iglesias.
Oh, and former championship leader, let's not forget as well, joined up with Coanda earlier this year. Oh, that's unfortunate, and I'm going to make a bold claim, given that he was running relatively high up, or higher up, I should say, just on the edge of the top 10, probably involved in a little bit of drama, Paul. So here we go, side by side with the Drago racing car. So you know that there's probably a little bit of contact there, and already the car had gone around. Couldn't quite see if they got stuck together or not, but Iglesias gets the worst of it.
Yeah, was trying to go down the inside of Matteo, who had actually moved forward a couple more places in this. I'll tell you what, I mentioned it at Okayama, but Nicholas Matteo does seem to have the edge over people, and it was the slightest of contact on lap 1 for Daniel Savini into the tyre barrier and he's actually parked the car on pit road, so not a good day for him. Leo Gariboli just outside of the points right now looking in. He's got Rafael Silva in front of him, and he's going to go to the outside. That gives you the inside for the next corner, and nicely done. But does Silva get the power down? Well, he's trying.
Not quite. People that watched the Spa 24-hour race in 2020 will remember when they used to run the car all the way out wide in the year that track limits really didn't count. I bet these drivers kind of wish they could have done that. Gariboli gets tagged from behind, a secondary bit of contact, and that right rear suspension, I'm not quite sure from the hands, but I'm pretty sure it's taken a big old wallop and can't be pointing straight, and you could see the frustration. You could see what it means to the driver as well, Paul. Oh, can't wait to see what happened there.
Yeah, the traditional wave of the hand, as Elvis Rankin and Beckham Jasiah do have a slowdown penalty on this lap, so obviously track limits at Eau Rouge. Radillon, William Chadwick and Oscar Pye switching places, but Pye was off track. He'll have a slowdown penalty right now. Chadwick will be screaming at his screen saying, give me the position back, Oscar. But Pye, if he can serve that slowdown penalty, like it or not, he's got the place.
And these wet conditions, it's so easy to make a mistake. Now, into turn one, barreling in. Oh, I thought the Coanda car was going to be the one making contact, you know. Pascal Costa's the one that makes a secondary impact with Gariboli, but oh, that's definitely going to be a pretty quick decision, I'd assume, for race control as Chadwick gets the rear end wiggling around on him. Lebigra can't take advantage, but they're pushing. And right now, it is Coanda 1 through 8 locking out that inverted reverse grid positioning for that feature race. They're in a really strong position right now, Paul, and this is kind of what we expected at some point this season, right? With 12 drivers entered in the competition, they were going to have a race like this at some point.
Yeah, they certainly were. That move on William Chadwick, I mean, Pye will be saying, well, Chadwick didn't leave me space to be alongside. Chadwick will be saying, well, he's gone off track. I tried to give him space, but he was gone off track and gained the position. This is why I'm very old school. In my track limits, I like grass, I like gravel. Bring it back, it makes life so much easier, but it's how we've got it right now. And anybody watching right now at home wondering, well, why don't the stewards do something? Things are investigated post-event, so you won't see any stewards' decisions being made in the middle of the race.
And it's also something you've got to keep in mind heading out of this, right? Because if there are drivers that get involved in things, well, Chadwick had a 10-point penalty after the last round, so if you're on that cut line, and I mean, Dave Warren's accumulated, I think it's 25, 35 points of a penalty point so far this season. Add another 25, 30 to that, and he's suddenly looking very, very differently, right? So, again, just a reminder of how the situation is playing out. Daniel Pastor and Oscar Pye, really the only change to care about, because anyone inside of the top 15, doesn't matter where you finished, outside of your own bragging rights and ego. Everyone starts from zero at the start of the 2025 Super Cup, no matter if you finished first in last year's Super Cup, or this year's Super Cup, I should say, or 15th in the Contender Series.
A couple more drivers have had slowdown penalties on this lap as well. Through Rouge Radillon, through the Lecombe Malmedy section of the track as well. Well, we're on lap 4 already. This race has flown by here in the early going. It's Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong who are pulling away at the front of the field. Bit of a gap between them and Dane Warren, Julian Sonnen, Elliot Veyron, Bryn Collins, Michael Jani, and Will Chadwick's back ahead of Oscar Pye. Now, is that a mistake from Pye, or has Pye thought, I might end up on the steward's bad books and give him the place back? But look at Lebigra now.
Never needs a second invitation, and as he tries to make the squeeze, Chadwick's going to be careful here. He'll get a bumper from both these cars as they battle door to door themselves. He'll cover the inside, surely. Can't afford to let Lebigra show his nose. As Lebigra mounts the curb, he gets in front of Oscar Pye. I mean, this is great stuff, all at the expense of a little bit of time, though. Now, 2 seconds clear of Michael Jani in 7th. Whoever finishes at the front of this train, don't forget, starts at the front of the feature race, there are 50 points potentially up for grabs, or the bragging rights of winning the very final round of this Contender Series to close out the season.
And don't forget, the race winner at that sodden Okayama track in the main race was William Chadwick from that reverse grid inversion. So it shows that he can do. I think, contact between Pi and Labigra, and here comes Xander Reed. They're 3 wide down the start and finish straight at the start of the final lap. A little bit of a squeeze going on. Oh, the don't give each other space as they go through, but Pi now under serious defensive here. Labigra, great launch out of the source.
The problem is for Labigra here, Paul, is he going to be clear of the 54? Is he going to expect the driver to give him space? And no, Labigra does the wise thing. He can't afford, he doesn't have the teammates to fight on this final lap. Backwards hat for Xander Reed. Never looked cooler, by the way. Wish I could pull it off like he does. It's been a fun fight, Paul. We've got one final lap to play this all out, all as your leaders have walked clear. It's been a great race. This is why we love these changing damp conditions.
I see what great as Elvis Rankin goes off at Le Con Malmedy. So drama for him here on this last lap as they go through and into position. But right now, as we go on, this is going to be absolutely fantastic to see for those final spots in the top 10. But the drivers at the front, though, well, I mean, they're not worried. They're just working together. Josh Rogers, Mitchell de Jong, they are loving life up at the front.
Take a look at the big send that I think is going to result in Rankin going around. Yeah, for Josh and Mitchell, right, they've been doing some fun stuff in the last couple of weeks, not just focusing on the Contender Series. We mentioned Mitchell's gone off and run some Nitro cross races, leading the championship before, unfortunately, that season prematurely brought to a close. Josh as well, he is alongside Dane Warren. They went karting with Matt Campbell, Porsche factory driver, during the week. So they've been going out there, doing stuff outside of the sim world, and I think that's helpful because as much as we've talked about, for example, Dane Warren's up and down through the championship, he's up here in third, Rogers leading, Coanda looking, like we said, very, very strong as this Contender Series gets ready to draw to a close.
Josh Rogers once again then, pole position. He's started on pole position just once before at the very first round at the Algarve. He won that sprint race, he won at Zolder as well, and he's a race winner again here in the sprint races of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. A little sigh of relief there, and look at that, William Chadwick finishes in 8th place.
I think I can read the lips there. Go on, get in, something along those lines. Maybe a bit more said a bit there.
You don't need to be a reader there for that, some of that stuff.
No, that was pretty easy to tell, but you called it. He won the main race at Okayama. That was in a lot more damp conditions, though, to be fair. We've seen the track dry. It's not totally dry. There is still spray being kicked up. This second start of the day is going to be very interesting up to La Source, especially knowing that Will Chadwick's got a sight in his rearview mirrors that would scare many. 7 Coanda drivers waiting to make their mark.
And they've seen what the fight was like, or they'll hear about what the fight was like between him and Oscar Pai, so they'll be giving William a heck of a stress. Well, here's the unofficial race results from the sprint race. It's Joshua Rogers from Mitchell de Jong, Dane Warren and Elliot Veyron, Julian Sonnen, Bryn Collins and Michael Jarney, the top 7 all Coanda Esports drivers. William Chadwick, for Hymo setups, finishes 8th and gets that inverted pole position spot. Then Oscar Pai just finishes in 9th ahead of Florian Labigra. Then it's Xander Reed, Morena Sarica ahead of Beckham Jasia and Daniel Pashto. That's 3 Williams Esports drivers altogether. 2 Drago Racing of Nicholas Mateo and Carlos Fenalosa, and then it's more Coanda cars. Tristan Iglesias, Elvis Rankin, Bobby Zelensky, and then Luis Belique rounds out the top 20, and that's the point scorers as well. Drivers not scoring: Rafael Silva, Leo Gariboli, Roger Christensen, Pascal Costa, Chunye Zhang, with Simone Maria Marcheno getting to finish, and Daniel Savini not finishing the race. Well, if it's good enough for Xander Reed, Arjuna, it's good enough for me. A backwards flat cap, come on.
But it's not flat anymore now, is it? It's well, I guess it's flat vertically.
It's still a flat cap.
Yeah, but I can't see the flat cap, so now it's like a chef's cap. So, Paul, what are you cooking for us today?
So the Wagyu beef. There you go.
The Big Mac that Bryn Collins stole from your McDonald's bag at what was it last year?
No. They promised. Bryn Collins promised donuts, and he's never provided.
Disappointing. I've never promised donuts before and never delivered. Never happened, iRacing.
Well, looking at those results though, Contender, you called it right in qualifying. They seem to have a handle of this wet weather setup with the mixed conditions.
It's so interesting, right? Because we talk about how this car is simple, quote unquote, to set up. There's not much that you can adjust. But when you get to this sort of a situation where every little adjustment is so important, having that strength, right, in numbers of being able to go and test so many different things, it does play out. And Contender, to be completely fair to them, have not necessarily been at their strongest over this summer outside of this car. I think of the IndyCar iRacing series, the Pro Series, where we've seen a number of their drivers, including previous Porsche Esports Super Cup champions Diogo Pinto and Jordan Caruso racing. Contender have not had the best race car. In fact, Redline have been much, much stronger. Compare that to today, it goes to show where that effort comes in, right? And if you ever wondered what a sim racing week looks like for some of these drivers, they're putting in 40, 50 hours of driving a week, and not just driving itself, sitting in the rig, analyzing data, working through setups, talking to their teammates about what they need to improve. This is a full-time commitment, and that's why we've seen Contender figure it out here today.
Yeah, we have absolutely seen that. Will Chadwick got his elbows out there towards the end of the race, got himself back into 8th place, which, as I pointed out at commentary, where he finished at Okayama in the sprint race, won that main race. Different circumstances on a different track here. I think Okayama, it's a bit easier to defend places, whereas here there is clear defined overtaking spots.
Oh, he was hanging on for everything he was worth, wasn't he? If there was one more lap, I would probably have... Sorry, we'll put some money down that you were going to lose that position. And I think we've got a longer race, let's not forget right now. So tire wear, is that going to be something? Now, these wet compounded tire, you're not expecting them to degrade in the same way a dry tire would. You're more thinking about how the groove is wearing off, right, and moving water around. But if this track continues to dry like we're expecting as well, who's got the best balance? Who's gone and figured all of that out? And we saw Will struggling. I think it's going to be a very, very tall task for him to hold on. But if there's anyone who's going to be up for it, it's probably Chadders. The question's also going to be, Paul, for those behind the top 8, right? How do they try and make their way forward now? How do they try and pass the wall of Contender that we've talked about to get themselves into some good points to close out this season?
Now, by the end of that sprint race, which was only 5 laps, the track went from lightly wet to very lightly wet, officially in session. They're in a 5-minute warm-up session right now under those conditions. For me, you don't risk it with a dry tyre, but somebody at the back, come on. Somebody at the back, give us a bit of a show, see what we can see, because I reckon by the end of this race, dry tyres would be quicker.
You know, if we had one of those drivers that, you know, well and truly was like out of it, and... Yeah, but I'm looking at the timing screen right now, and I'm thinking like Matti Sieppula, Jakub Maciejewski. Those are the types of drivers that maybe would have gone for it. They're not here. So I don't think we're going to see anyone that crazy. But never say never. We have seen, I guess, weirder and wilder things before. But I don't know if that's necessarily one to expect. And Paul, we left Okayama thinking that was going to be the only time that we saw any sort of moisture over the course of the season, right? So have these drivers prepared for it? Did they know leaving the last round of the season, where we had a brand new track to adapt to the challenges of, that they'd have to adapt to a damp Spa? Have to find out when we talk to the drivers post-race.
Yeah, absolutely. Be interesting to get their thoughts after this event. Well, the drivers are getting themselves set for this second race of the evening. Nicholas Matteo, I mentioned him all the way through that first race. He's somebody who seems to be quite deft in these damp conditions. Was a bit unfortunate with his incident with Tristan Iglesias, I thought.
Yeah, it was hard to tell, just also because of the way they spun, right? Exactly how that unfolded. But That is how the Super Cup Contender Series works, right? You put yourself into position, sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. Same thing happens in the Super Cup. It's something that Matty, Siepel, and myself, we talked about a couple of weeks ago when I mentioned that maybe I thought he was being a bit timid, and he said, no, that's just the way that you race in the Super Cup. You sometimes wait for the opportunities and then you go for it. So he's definitely going to be one to watch, but he's got some work to do. Remember, he's got some work to do, as does that man. I don't think I've ever seen Will Chadwick looking so tense, and that includes back at the Esports World Cup. That's a driver that's feeling some stress.
Yeah, he's doing the nervous wiggle, isn't he? He's got a lot of tension there, and why wouldn't you? Because you're on pole position for this, the final race of the 2024 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series, starting alongside Michael Jarney, and then it's just a wall of purple, orange, and white because Bryn Collins, Julian Sonin, Elliot Veyron, Dane Warren, and then Mitchell de Jong and Josh Rogers and Oscar Pye all behind him. 8 Coanda cars all behind him at the start. Florin Labigra in 10th place, row number 5 for him. Then Xander Reed and Morena Sarica on row number 6. 7th row of the grid for Beckham Jasia and Daniel Pastor, with Nicolas Mateo and Carlos Fenolosa. And then Tristan Iglesias, who had that incident with Mateo, he'll be looking to move forward. Elvis Rankin alongside him on row number 9. Row 10, it's Bobby Zelensky and Luis Belique, with Rafael Silva, Leo Gariboli, Roger Christensen, Pascal Costa on row number 12. And then the rest of them, Chunya Zhang, alongside him is Simone Mineo Marchena and Daniel Savini, rounding out our 27-car grid. It's the last race of the season here in the Contender Series. Are we going to be seeing a little bit of last day at school then, Arjuna? Everybody bring their favourite toys in for everyone to play.
No, you don't bring your favorite toys, and you bring the opposite, because those are the ones that you know are going to get destroyed. I think that's what we're expecting a little bit. I think turn 1's not where we should expect all of the incident. Instead, it's going to be up towards Les Combes and rising through Eau Rouge, probably, where I think there's going to be a little bit more to keep an eye on. Have been taking a look at the choice of tire, and am I crazy, or quite a few of the drivers on dry compound of tire?
Belique and Gariboli are the only ones showing us on wet tyres on my screen. We'll have to wait and see. But for the final time this season, the engine revs rise.
Green, green, green.
And we're green flag racing in the main race. It's a good launch from second place. Once again, Michael Jarney getting squeezed by William Chadwick into La Source on lap number 1. Turn right on the power, and still they're neck and neck between them. Jarney has got the run, the rubbing door handles and mirrors all the way down, the spray being kicked up. Careful, and Will Chadwick backs out of it. That's the smart move there. Through Eau Rouge and Radion for the first time. And drivers seem to be doing well through this one as they go up the Camel Straight for the first time, Arjuna.
That you always want to be the car on the outside running down to Eau Rouge. You want to be on the outside potentially, though, up towards Les Combes, and they bang doors once more, and Will Chadwick retakes the race lead. That's a driver that's nervous, but nervous and ready to fight, and this is going to be an all-out brawl between them at the very front of the field. Haven't really seen too many drivers make inroads at the back. Oscar Pye and Florian Labigra have gained 2 positions each, but they're 2 by 2 just on the edge of the top 10 as they cycle down in this middle sector.
As Pye and Warren, side by side, Florian Labigra, nowhere to go, boxed in, and now bang into the side of Pye. All manner of out of shape there for Labigra. Even more contact between more Coanda cars. The de Jong is involved in that. Xander Reed is involved in that. And my goodness, it's carnage here out of Speaker's Corner. Through Double Gauche for the first time, up to Lafagna, onto the brakes. I do think if they are on dry tyres, they are pushing their limits.
And he saw it in the back as well. Elvis Rankin went down at the very tail end of the field. Outside of that, though, quite remarkable that we've had a clean start. And I think you're right about the conditions, because Gariboli and Luis Belique are the only 2 drivers that have elected to start on those wet compound of tires. Paul mentioned it right before the green drop. And already, Luis Belique is up 7 positions to 13th. If he gains another 7 positions in another couple of laps, he's cracking up toward the top 5 and really starting to challenge for the lead. Look how much spray there is. Elliott Veyron off the track up towards Blanchimont. They are hanging on by every inch that they have got, and they've got 9 laps still left to go.
I do think that dry tyres are the quicker way to go overall in the race, but right now, as things stand, Bellique is up 9 places as he crosses the line. This is a great opening, and if it pays off for both him and Leo Gariboli, then, well, your absolute heroes is almost into the rear of the car in front. But you see the confidence that Bellique has under braking as well.
He almost just took out Mitchell de Jong, and Paul can see my face. I'm glad that you all can't right now, because I'm peeking between cracks in my fingers. This is very, very fascinating. You can see the amount of grip that Apex Racing Academy car has got. No one else can compare, and no chewing on the straw for Beckham Jasir is going to give you a little bit of extra grip. Up towards Les Combes, send under the brakes. Bellique grabs 12.
He does have a slowdown penalty along with 8 drivers in total. Slowdown penalty through Eau Rouge Radion. That is just showing how much they're pushing those track limits. Oh, and Bellique under pressure then from Marina Sirica. Beckham Jasir 14th right now. Oh, and Sirica's around. Sirica, the slightest of touches and bang. Oh, Leo Gariboli, one of the unluckiest drivers on the track. Watch your rejoin there, my goodness, almost into the path of somebody else there, towards the bottom end of the top 8. Lebigre ahead of Pye and Rogers and de Jong. De Jong and Rogers, they've dropped back from 7th and 8th down to 9th and 10th.
I don't really need to fight right now, and they think they recognize what this final race of the season is going to be in. Now, that wasn't great. This is... okay, we didn't see the rejoin. I was about to say that's maybe a little bit worse than all of that. What's rule number 1 of racing?
Don't hit your seat, mate.
Yeah. Now, there wasn't necessarily one that... Oh, that rejoin... Again, we just missed the rejoin. Gariboli gets a face full of all of that. His wet tyres can't really do much on the grass there.
No. And he missed the tyre wall by about 10 metres. If that.
It's just messy, it's clumsy. I'm sure Williams will have a brief chat in the debrief, and there's probably not much that really could have been changed there, except Marina Sirica not rejoining like a blind man leading the blind, and almost taking out Pascal Costa with him.
I can hear Conor Maddock from here, tutting very loudly.
Oh, screaming.
At the rejoin. Luis Bellique is dropping down the order. I think we've found where that cut-off is now for those wet tyres. I said you could look a hero, but right now, no, it's too dry now for those drivers. In fact, the track is officially classed as mostly dry.
Yeah, you could see the spray as well, right? Especially at speed, where you expect the rooster tails to be a bit bigger and higher. They've definitely dropped down right on board with that Apex Racing Academy machine and sat behind. Does also seem to be a bit of a straight line deficit for some cars. Wondering if they've dialed in a bit more rear wing or something. He's still got the confidence under the brakes to send it where there's potentially a little bit more water, but just, you can see, goes straight initially, holds up the cars behind, and instantly Daniel Pastor's thinking, right, let me try and get back up the inside.
Florian Lebigre has a black flag. So is that not serving a slowdown penalty in time? I don't know, but Lebigre, and he's pulling over. That's his day done.
Oh, and that's Daniel Pastor in the wall behind as well. So Florian Lebigre doesn't really need to finish this race. He's pretty secure inside of the top 15, but Daniel Pastor definitely not. My goodness.
Yeah, Pastor down to 23rd right now. Lebigre has parked the car and left the server. He's done for the day. There's 24 cars still running in this race, so if you finish the race, you get points, and that is what happened to Pastor.
Well, bad to worse. What happens here? I mean, that Apex Racing Academy car, I think you're right, Paul. We're at that crossover point, and now beyond it, those wet tires are starting now to be a detriment, to be a bit of a compromise. Daniel Savini's also slow on the timing screen. I just think we're starting to see, like I said, this is where it's not the last day of school, bring all your nicest toys. It's last day of school, bring all your worst toys, because they're all going to get broken, and you'll head into a new year with hopefully some new toys. Look at the live point situation as well, where we are seeing some changes, Paul, and it's closer than we thought that it might be.
Well, you look at where Oscar Pai is right now. If his team are watching this broadcast, which I'm sure somebody is right now, they'll be saying, Dane, Julian, Elliot, move over, let Oscar through, because we need to get him up into that top 15 right now. Savini does have mechanical meatball warning flag. I'm not surprised with how heavy that impact was. But here's Oscar Pai. He's got Rogers and De Jong behind him, but it's a bit of a gap between him and Dane Warren.
What do you do? What do you do? You've got to get the pace up if you're Oscar Pai. And maybe what that means is you let Rogers through to pull you forward, right? You're not expecting Will Chadwick to slow down. So maybe what you need to do is use the teammates around you to try and bridge that gap. We've still got half this race left to go. And we're talking 4 points here, Paul. 4 points to guarantee yourself, pending the steward's review, a spot in the 2025 Porsche Esports Super Cup. Whereas 16th position, you and I, we think that driver might still be in the Super Cup, but there's going to be a couple of anxious weeks and months waiting for that email to drop in the inbox saying, welcome to the Super Cup.
Luis Palique has parked the car and has taken a tour back to pit road. That is his day done. He thought he was going to be a hero. Instead, it's not. But bring Collins up into 17th. That could prove to be important for him as well if a couple of the drivers from the top 15 of this year's Super Cup elect to not take up their opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think this is also why Beckham Jasir, knowing that he's tied with his teammate Moredo Sariki, it's just actually popped out to me right now looking at that number again. If he gets in front of Tristan Iglesias, he makes himself a little bit more confident, a little bit more secure, because we haven't seen all the chaos, right? We've seen a lot of incidents here and there, but race control's going to get sent protests by all these teams and drivers, like you mentioned, for a review after the race. So we'll only know what the points penalties are probably Tuesday next week. So give yourself a buffer. Let's say you lose 10 points. Beckham Jasir right now drops behind Oscar Pai. So every position means something, and that's what Michael Preston, someone else from that Williams Esports team, Jake Hammond, will be telling Beckham in his ear as they cycle their way onto yet another lap.
Well, they'll be saying to him, if you can, get ahead of Tristan, but be careful not to get yourself involved in any instant either. Simone Emilia Marcheno and Bobby Zelensky going side by side, and Roger Christensen says, thanks guys, I'll take 2 spots right there. And Roger moves himself up into 16th in this race. So 2 places gained for Roger. 19th in the championship. Here's Pascal Costa, again, a driver who's had some of the worst luck this season, as we've got a driver serving a slow down penalty, and in fact, that's Marcheno.
And I think Marcheno's had a bit of a tough day. Well, almost got tangled up in Daniel Savini's incident on the opening lap of the sprint race. That's a big old send. Just about slowed down in time by Bobby Zelensky, though, who, like you said, great to see him finishing off the season. Not going to see him back in the Super Cup next year, but showing us that he's committed, and maybe we'll have a crack at qualifying next year once again. Been very impressed by Roger Christensen this season. Pascal Costa's had a little less luck than the Valkyrie driver has had, and you can see it there once again, just climbing on the inside curb, unsettles the car, rear end almost comes around him, on him down through the left-hander, and you can see the slight frustration in the face right now, Paul, and that's, I think, kind of what the season has been like for Pascal Costa. Is now leaned on by Simone Marcheno.
Yeah, Marcheno, you know he's feisty, you know he's going to keep on pushing, give that passion and push on. The grid and go driver makes contact with Costa. Costa's into the gravel, looks across his shoulder, sees that there's nobody coming now, and the sign of resignation across his face. Well, it says it all, really. And yeah, Costa down positions here. Back to Beckham Jasir and Tristan Iglesias there together. Carlos Fenolosa making a move on Nicholas Matteo behind, so the two compatriots working out there, and in 13th and 14th place. As, oh, very, very deep for the Contender driver, and Josiah, that's the opportunity he needed.
And that's now going to also open up the chance for those behind to pass Iglesias. So focused on defense, small mistake, big consequences. Don't think that Fenelloso and Matteo will take this chance just yet, though, is out through turn one. Back onto the power they go.
Tristan Iglesias has a black flag, so that must be incident points accumulation as Fenelloso comes alongside. Iglesias is not giving this one up, my goodness. Door handle to door handle through a Rouge Radion, and still they're going together. But Iglesias has got to be resigned to the fact that he's got to service a drive-through penalty. Fenelloso one side of the track, everybody else to the other, as down the gut into Lecombe and Malmedy, and that just allowed Silva and Matteo to work their way through on those two.
Absolutely. Here's a look at the replay, a little bit too deep. And yeah, just you can see where the contact was. That's probably where the incident points were accumulated that put him over the limit. That's something all the other drivers will be keeping an eye on as well. Spa is notorious for track limits. Even with the updates over the years that iRacing continue to make, drivers always looking for any advantage that they can find. So, as Paul mentioned, it's always easier when you've got a wall, grass. When there's a curb, a painted line becomes a little bit more interesting, a little bit more difficult on occasion to try and figure things out. Now remember, Rafael Silva went out very early in qualifying, and it was not a terrible lap time by any means. He's in the fight right now around the outside of Nicholas Matteo. He's definitely shown that he's feeling confident in his own abilities and the car that he's got underneath him, which I think is the most important thing that you can do, Paul, right? Even if you're not winning every race, you've got to make sure you're maximizing your own performance, and I've got to say, Rafael Silva, he'll leave this Contender series knowing he made a good account of himself.
Rafael Silva's best result of the season was a 12th place in the main race at Zolder. So Rafael showing that he can get some results out there. Matteo is getting involved with Carlos Fenelloso. Fenelloso's got a black flag now for incident points. We're on to lap 7 of this race. A few of those drivers are going to be looking nervously at their instant point accumulation. And remember, in this race, it's 17 incident points gets you a drive-through penalty.
Just like in golf, a pro can hit a bad shot just like a top-level sim racer can hit an off-track limit, much like I can. An average golfer, an average sim racer as well. Difference is they tend to do it a little less frequently, right? At this level, though, when you are in those battles, sometimes you make decisions about when to pick up incident points. And so if you are Will Chadwick, if you're Michael Johnny, you've probably been saving them and reserving them so you can start to push a little bit more now. Strategically run off track and be a little bit faster. That's the gamesmanship at this level of motorsport, be it real or virtual. And the gap that they built up to bring Collins behind, who, let's not forget, this is a result that's seeing him jump forward a position in the championship. They are now left to their own devices. Two drivers ready to just battle for the win. And Will Chadwick's looking more comfortable, Paul, than he did at the end of the sprint race. And we've put a couple more laps on the tires as well. His car is a lot more balanced.
Will Chadwick was moving very light on the racing line. Nothing untoward with it. It's pushing it where if that car behind didn't quite hit the brakes in the same place as you, they're going to end up rear-ending you. So he doesn't need to push, does Will. He's pretty much in the qualification, pretty much sewn up in that. For me, you don't risk. You see, this is old head Paul right now. You don't risk you getting involved with the stewards for anything silly. If you finish second, you finish second. It's not the end of the world. The whole purpose of this championship, of this Contender series, is making sure you're in that top 15, which he is comfortably, but you still don't want to incur the wrath of the stewards.
Yeah, and that green line, if you're just joining us, top 15 automatically qualify for the Porsche Tag for Esports Super Cup in 2025, pending eligibility. Anyone below that might still get the chance to compete, only though if drivers elect not to join the series who have already earned that chance. So you want to be above that cut line. That's what we've been talking about. I think there's also something else, right, Paul, that is going to be important. As far as I'm aware, this is the last time any of these drivers are going to race this Porsche Cup car in a field this competitive until we go racing for the start of next year's Super Cup. There's no endurance series that's using these cars over the course of the winter. There's no sprint series either. So this is the last chance to put in your own mind, wait, I'm good in this car. Michael Johnny almost runs into the back of Will Chadwick and leaves an imprint in the bumper.
I think he did run into the back of him, actually, and that's what I'm talking about, where Chadwick's coming back onto that racing line that he's entitled to do because the car behind is not there making an overtake, but then he's hitting the brakes, and you're asking for trouble, I think, in doing that. But the problem is, if you don't go onto that racing line, you're then compromising yourself through Les Combes and Malmedy. But then again, Arjuna, what do I know? I'm sat here talking about Will Chadwick. He's actually out there doing it.
I think what Michael's just trying to do is show himself in the mirror, right? Unsettle. It's something that you talk about so frequently. But that's why, top tip in sim racing, or maybe not a top tip, depending on how you look at it. You know you can turn off your mirrors in sim racing. You don't need to get scared by cars peeking themselves out. And that's a good and a bad thing, right? We talk at Le Mans in the Super Cup, right? When we have those 3 and 4 wide battles occasionally about drivers using the virtual mirror to get a wider perception of what's happening around them. These are all those little tools that these drivers are figuring out. And I've just got to say, Michael Johnny showing himself in the mirror probably doesn't scare Will Chadwick very much.
But it's showing that slipstream, and Johnny's just showing, I think, that I'm right here, I'm in the slipstream, and I'm going to make my move probably on that last lap up the Kemmel Straight, and it is uphill all the way up the Kemmel Straight. I can tell you that from experience. Julian Cernan and Dane Warren swapping places. Here's Oscar Pye. Now, is Dane Warren going to move over and allow Oscar Pye through to let it get him into positions? Remember, strictly speaking, there is no team orders in this series, so you have to do it on the track. Pye made the move down the inside into La Source. It's now just 3 points separating him and Beckham Jasir.
Oh man, I can see Dominic Blyer, Dara McCormack, Williams Esports teammates watching. Let's check in though with this battle for the lead as Will Chadwick and Michael Johnny go at it side by side at the top of the Kemmel. Long way around's going to be brave, and this is what happened at the start of the race.
You don't need to be banging doors down the straight, guys. Just do it cleanly and still touch between them through Les Combes into Malmedy. And then down the hill, they're going again. Touch of doors into the braking zone. Chadwick, I've not seen Will Chadwick this feisty out on track for a very, very long time, if ever. By the way, just a little note, Josh Rogers, the latest driver, with a black flag due to instant points.
Wonder how much these drivers have got in reserve as well. Go back to Jasir and Pye. Julian Sunnan, Elliot Veyron. I think if Oscar Pye gets in front of both of them, he will leap himself in front of Beckham Jasir to the point that Jasir cannot respond. Remember, there's a 4-second buffer between 10th and 11th position. So we've got 1 lap to go. There's this fight up front, but there's also a fight on the cut line, Paul, that I don't think we can keep our eyes away from. Here's Pye on the back of 2 of his teammates.
Yeah, and as I say, strictly speaking, to the letter of the regulations, there is no team orders in these races, and so you have to do it on the track. The stewards will penalise you if it is obvious that it's team orders, so you've got to be careful with it. As they go, Pye letting it run all the way out wide through Blanchimont to start the last lap of this race. And well, Collins, Veyron, Cernan, Pye, Warren, De Jong, Xander Reed, and Josh Rogers will have to take to pit road to serve his drive-through penalty. That means Beckham Jasir, crucially for him, moves up a place as here comes Pye down the inside.
And well, so Beckham Jasir gets a free point. Oscar Pie surely is now going to make the move on at least one of his teammates, and so that's going to bump him in. What drama, and Paul, look in the bottom as well, because here comes the battle for the race lead, and Will Chadwick's gone to the outside. He's done, I think, what he needs to do. He's forced Michael Johnny to try and commit to the grass. All four wheels into the grass for the Commando car.
And that is robust. It's hard. They're knocking 7 bells out of each other. I half expect them to be out in the car park of the Red Lion. After this one, I can tell you, this is going to be a bare-knuckle fight to the end here. Chadwick's going to try and go around the outside. That's not the line you want to be on, but if you can hold it there, you got the inside for the next couple of corners. Speaker's corner. Well, Johnny could get on the power earlier. Big squeeze from Chadwick on Johnny into double gush, the double left-hander. Johnny's going to try and hang it out there. And if these two trip over each other, Bryn Collins, Elliot Veyron, Oscar Pie, who's up into 4th place. Pie's up into 4th place. That moves him to 14th on the live standings.
And this is what... You've got to wonder how they're going to work together here. Will they avoid tripping over each other? Oscar Pie just needs to finish where he is, and he is in the Super Cup, but he's got his teammates still battling around him. Dane Warren, Julian Sun on top of one another. Paul, it's been a great Contender series. Enjoyed these last 7 weeks, but we now finally know who the 15 drivers are that have stood up, been the most consistent, and wow, they've got now the chance to build in the winter heading into next year's Super Cup.
Will Chadwick, it was a mistake from Johnny on the exit of Piff Path, which allows Chadwick to pull away slightly. Under the brakes they go. Last lap, Will Chadwick. He will see himself to the line. Another race winner, and look what it means to him. Look what it means. He's done it the hard way. And my goodness, I tell you what, I've never seen him so emotional there. Across the line, the rest of them go. Pie does end up in 4th place. Beckham Jasiah 10th. And crucially, Marina Sarica was one of those drivers who got damaged down in 23rd.
Oh my goodness, take a breath. Remember, we saw Will Chadwick at the start of that race looking as nervous as we'd ever seen him. I don't think we've ever seen him so relieved, so jubilant, not just with the race win, but Paul, knowing that finally he can start to prepare for next year's Super Cup. He is one of the 30 of the best in the iRacing road course world.
It's shown also that he's not a walkover, and you have to fight tooth and nail to be able to beat him. Well, there you go. Here are your final unofficial race results after the main race of the final round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. William Chadwick for Hymo Setups, winner by 0.4 of a second over Michael Johnny, but that doesn't tell half the story between those two. Bryn Collins finishes on the podium for him. Behind him was Oscar Pie, crucially getting himself the points to get into the top 15 of the standings, pending any post-race issues from the stewards. Elliot Veyron, Dane Warren, Julian Sony, Mitchell de Jong, and Xander Reed round out the rest of the Commando cars, and Beckham Jasiah into that top 10 for Williams Esports. Rafael Silva, what a drive it was for him through the field. Gained 10 places in the end to finish in 11th place. Good finish to the season for him. And then drivers who had issues all the way through that race. Elvis Rankin, Josh Rogers, Roger Christensen, Daniel Pashtor with the recovery drive to 15th. Bobby Zelensky ahead of Simone Mineo Marchena. Nicholas Mateo ahead of Pascal Costa and Chunye Zhang. Then in 21st, it's Carlos Fenalosa, Tristan Iglesias, and then drivers who finish multiple laps down. Marina Sarica, he misses out on those automatic invitations to next year's Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. Luis Belique, Daniel Savini, Leo Gariboli, and Florian Labigra all do not finish the race. Well then, Arjuna, I think we're going to have a very, very emotional and excitable William Chadwick in for an interview today.
Absolutely. So let's not dawdle. Let's chat with the feature race winner once again, converting from the inverted pole. He's got to switch his headsets as well, doesn't he? So we'll give him a sec. We'll keep filling the time. Let him, the diva, do all the button switching, turn it on and off, blah, 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 blah. You know, he's a RaceSpotTV commentator as well. So we can tease.
Know better. No, he should know better.
No, we can tease him a little bit, right?
No. Sorry, I was trying to use my other microphone. It just wasn't working. I'm not sure why. Hello.
You're trying to give us that broadcast-worthy audio, but it wasn't to be. Will, I've got to ask you, though. I don't think I've ever seen you as nervous as just before that feature race, where you were looking off a little bit. There was a bit of a nervous shake going on. What was going through your mind? Because you were defending like a lion at the end of the sprint race, and you had 7 Contender cars behind you at the start of the feature. What were you thinking?
Well, I mean, I've had this position before, right? You know, we spoke after Zolder saying how I was being a bit cautious and kind of racing for points. That was not a race for points. That was a race for the win, and I absolutely gave it everything. And I must say to Gianni, we did that kind of rehearsal back in Jimmy's charity race last year, and we had a great race. And I knew with Gianni that we could have a great race, and I think it was a very, very good battle. And respects to him for leaving just about enough room. We were banging doors every corner almost.
Yeah, so I've got to ask, Johnny in the grass on the final lap, coming up the top of the camel. What's your view on all of it? Was it over the line, on the line, under the line? How do you feel? Were you happy?
I don't mind him going for it. You know, it's probably what I would have done in the same thing. I think that by the time he committed to it, I closed it, but you know, he obviously had momentum. The grass is obviously going to slow you down a little bit, but, you know, he went for it, and I respect the effort, because I think we both knew we had really nothing to lose. If we both ended up in the fence fighting for the win, then we're still, you know, achieving the main aim, right? It was just for that win, and I completely respect him going for that. And, yeah, it all was fair, I think. And, yeah, it was a really good race, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Well, I tell you what, I know how much it means to you when you win these races, but more importantly, you've now made it into the top 15. You are no longer a contender. You are now part of the 2025 Porsche Tag Core Esports Super Cup. So congratulations, Will Chadwick. Can't wait to see how things go for you next year.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the whole season's broadcasting. Really appreciate it.
Always great to catch up with Will. Let's catch up with Michael Johnny now and see the other side of that equation. Michael, Will was just saying how much fun he had fighting you. How much fun were you having there? All 4 wheels on the grass on the final lap to close out the season.
Yeah, I really wanted the win, to be fair, because I haven't been able to get a feature invert win, like, either year. So, you know, I was kind of trying everything there. Figured I could make it look cool, maybe lift out of it, but nah, it's fair play to Chadwick. Like, in terms of placing the car, I just couldn't beat him. Like, every time I tried to do something, he would perfectly put the car to prevent me from doing that. And then when I had the chance to maybe go at him on the back straight into the final chicane, I just got loose trying to push too hard. So it's kind of over at that point. But yeah, a lot of fun. It's cool to drive like that, because with how much can go wrong in a sim with different pings, different locations, you know, being able to like hit each other on the straight and actually defend and overtake and have it work out like that is perfect. It's you know, once in a blue moon basically type situation. And on the fact of that, we're in a final round of a PESC contender season, so it's a pretty cool spot to do so, and a lot of fun.
And now, I know it's been a busy year for you. You've still got some other things left to do before you can officially close out 2024. How you feeling heading into 2025, especially given that, you know, Contender Series, for the most part, I know you've been juggling a couple of different cars. We've seen some speed from you.
Yeah, for sure this is the best series, I think, that I like. I've given IndyCar a good whack, but I just don't really get the car, so we're just going to suffer through the rest of the oval rounds, I think, and hope we learn something. And then we've got the, well, a few more championships towards the end of the year, which I'm looking forward to, and hopefully in the Cup car or GT3s. So busy, but now I get a well-needed break, so I'm excited for that.
Enjoy the break. We'll see you next year, ready to go once more. Congratulations, Michael, on a great Contender Series campaign.
Thank you.
And so let's see if we can catch up with Bryn Collins, who, well, fought his way up into the points in this final round, but just on the wrong side of the cut line. Bryn, talk to us about how this entire Contender Series as a whole has gone for you. 7 races and just missing out on automatic qualification.
Yeah, it's not been the best of series, to be honest. You know, I've had a lot of ups and downs so far, but I want to say like a big thank you to the team. Everybody's been amazing behind the scenes. We've all been putting in the work, but yeah, I think I've just missed out there, but I'm still happy with that last round performance.
And I mean, at the end of the day, this is such a competitive series. You put yourself still in the playing field. So let's say there's a couple of drivers that elect not to take up their licenses. You may still be in a chance with competing. What's the rest of the year hold for you? What's the plans? How are you going to continue to try and improve as we get ready to go for 2025?
Wow, obviously the IMSA Championship is coming up, which I'm pretty sure you are commentating on, so I think you know that. But that's going to be my main goal for after this. But I think for the whole year, just kind of do some official races and just like do the classic team races and just practice a lot to try and improve, you know. That's the goal.
Well, Brent, we'll see how things shake up for you. Looking forward to seeing you maybe plenty more in 2025. Unfortunate how things ended, but at least you put your best foot forward across this Contender series.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
And so one more interview to wrap up our postseason coverage. Let's chat with Oscar Pye, who just about sneaks his way into the top 15 in the Contender Series and into the 2025 Porsche Esports Super Cup. Oscar, tell me, how are you feeling right now? How are the nerves feeling?
I'm very stressed. I mean, now it's going down, but yeah, it was by far the most stressful race I ever had. Being so close to get the pole in the first race, then I go down to P9, and then it was like a hard fight. So like it was stressful knowing that any little contact could get me off, and I needed big points. So yeah, it was very stressful, but we did it.
What is you talk to us about that stress. How do you prepare for an event like this, right? When you know all you can do is get the best result that you can. What was the preparation like? Did you do a lot of driving in the wet and dry conditions to try and figure out what the difference was? How did you practice for this race?
Yeah, first of all, we knew it was gonna be wet, thanks to the genius people in the team. And so yeah, we practiced going from a wet track to a drier track like it was in that race. So that helped. We already knew kind of how the track was reacting, but you can't really prepare to for the stress, because in the practice races you just drive and do your best. But here there were much more stress, so it was yeah, really different, and was a long race.
Well, we'll see you next year in the Super Cup, Oscar. I'm sure your nerves are still settling, but go off and celebrate, and we'll see you in 2025.
Yeah, and just to finish, I would like to thank the whole team for all the practice this season. And yeah, it's super cool to practice as many as we are, fun, and also you progress much faster with that group. So thanks to them.
And I lied. One more chat before we wrap up the season. Beckham Jasir joins us now. Beckham, I mean, just about. Talk to us about how, well, today went. Of course, after missing the first round, you always were a bit on the back foot, but I think ultimately things a bit more stressful than you were hoping for.
Yeah, definitely doesn't help for me coming into every round with only 2 hours of prep. But yeah, I did what I said in Laguna Seca. We just stayed consistent, you know, in the top 15, trying to fight for reverse grids. But yeah, all in all, it was not bad for a first season in PESC. But this last round was very chaotic, I would say. And I think we all know what Contender did here, but I'm not going to say anything. But yeah, I guess interesting season.
Talk to us about the 2 hours of prep per week. I mean, that I can't even imagine. I mean, when do you even get that practice? Are you showing up on Saturday a couple of hours before? How have you been able to, you know, get the sort of result even with the limited practice that you've had?
Yeah, so I'm competing in the British F4 series, so my early week is kind of busy, and then I usually start prepping Friday and then Saturday morning, basically the whole day on Saturday for this for the races.
Well, Beckham, it's been a roller coaster of a season, that is for sure. I can only imagine the up and down that you went through today alone. But enjoy the rest of the year. Go off and get some rest, and we'll see you next year, ready to go and recharge for the start of the 2025 Porsche Esports Super Cup.
Thank you, guys.
Well, there we go. And here is a look at your provisional standings, of course, pending any post-event stewards' decisions. Joshua Rogers is the one who is champion ahead of Mitchell de Jong. But there is the important page right there. It's Oscar Pye and Beckham Jasiah just, and I mean just, getting automatic invitations into the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup for next year. Moreno Sarica and Bryn Collins and Daniel Pashtor, to a degree, they've just got to hope that not everybody takes up their spots.
Yeah, and I think for Moreno, as much as he'll feel frustrated, as far as we are aware, there is probably the expectation that he will be competing. It's behind where there's a bit more of a question mark. Who else will not be returning to next year's Super Cup? And Beckham said it right there, some frustrations about how things played out at the end of the day. But Paul, ultimately, that is why the team game is so important, right? Having the strength in numbers is something that every team wants to have. Only a couple really enjoy in the Super Cup itself.
We look forward to next season quickly to the Porsche Esports Super Cup. You look at those two teams, you mentioned it a couple of rounds ago, Team Redline and also the Oracle Red Bull Sim Racing team against Coanda, with a few other teams dotted in there as well. Apex Racing Team, let's not forget them for one. It's going to be a fascinating season.
Scene has changed, I think, to say the very least. Since Rogers, de Jong, Warren, and Mac Backham stepped away from the Super Cup and into their roles in the Porsche Coanda Esports team, I think it's going to be feisty. I think that's an understatement, to say the very least, right? But with that challenge, right, of Coanda versus Redline, also comes the opportunity, right? There's going to be a couple of Williams cars. There will be a couple of Drago cars as well. Jordan Caruso won the championship with no team assistance. We have to remember that. He had teammates that were competing in the series, but they were all racing, unfortunately, towards the back of the field. Teammates are important, but they aren't everything. The focus will be on the two juggernauts, but there's so many stories still to tell.
Yep, and I, for one, cannot wait for that. I'm afraid that is all that we've got time for here today on this coverage of the finale of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. My thanks to Arjuna Kankipati for joining myself, Paul Smith, on commentary all season. Hugo Luis has been behind the scenes for us here at RaceSpotTV, producing all the pictures that you see, and a big thank you to him and the rest of the team at RaceSpot. We'll see you early next year for the Porsche Esports Super Cup 2025.